Hey, I'm Dave with KDN Performance, and I'm here today with Adrian and his 2000 Civic Si, and we're going to be doing a B-Series all-wheel drive installation video. So Adrian already had this KDN Performance shifter into his car. We just pulled it out so we can show you guys step by step how to put it together, and also some changes that we made. This is what comes with the box. You got your shifter. This one is equipped with the 1-2-1 lockout. You can choose to buy it with or without. All these shifters will come with a 232 lockout and fifth and reverse lockout. We got a pair of cables with billet cable ends, and these are the M6 joint that goes on the shifter side. Every cables will be labeled A and B. For reference, the longer joints will always be cable B. You got your transmission bracket and all the required hardware for it. So we've listened to your concerns on how long it takes to adjust your shifter. So we came up with a solution. We've made those brand new billet bulkhead spacers. These are going to cut down 90% of your adjustment. And today we're going to show you how to put them on your existing cable. For all the new orders that are going to be coming in, these new billet bulkhead spacers are already going to be installed on the cables, so you don't have to worry about it, and you can skip this part of the video. For those of you who already have our shifter and wants to save 90% of the adjustment time, let me show you how to install these. So when you receive this kit, it's going to be divided in the packaging. You're going to have the bulkhead and the nut for the shifter side and for the transmission side. But right now, we're going to focus on the shifter side of it. So in this kit, on the shifter side, you'll get two billet nuts that are identical, so you can't really mess that up. You're going to get two billet bulkhead spacer. The smaller one will go on cable B. The longer one will go on cable A. If you're unsure or your stickers are worn out, the shorter joint will always be on cable A, and the longer joint will always be on cable B. Now we're going to focus on cable A. So the first thing you want to do to install these new bulkhead spacers, you want to take this M6 joint off, take this nut off, these two washers, and lastly this nut. Now you're ready to put this bulkhead spacer there. I like to use some blue Loctite just to make sure vibration doesn't move it. Put a little bit on there, and it goes, this is the direction it needs to go. You want to make sure it's all the way in so there's no thread left, and then give it a twist. Now that you're done with cable A, we're going to do the exact same thing with cable B. So for reference, cable B has a longer joint, and it's written on that sticker. So you want to start with removing this joint. Same thing, take this nut off, two spacers, and this nut. Again, I like to use Loctite. Put a little bit on there. We're going to use the shorter spacer. Make sure it's all the way in and there's no thread showing. So all the hardware that we just took off, that's not going to be needed anymore. So the next step is installing the cables into the shifter. We're going to start with cable A, which goes into this hole. It has the longer bulkhead, and that cables will control your side-to-side movement. So I like to turn the shifter on its side because it gives me a lot more room to get in there and put the bulkhead nuts. So we're going to install cable A. You put it in there in this hole. You go from inside, and what I like is just to get it started. Because if you tighten it all the way, it's going to be harder to put the M6 joint after. So next you want to take your M6 joints. You want to take the shorter one for cable A, get it on there. Since we now have the billet bulkhead, there's no adjustment on this one, so just thread it all the way in. So now we're going to thread the M6 joint into the side pivot. On this one, I like to use a little blue Loctite, make sure nothing gets loose. Grab a 10mm wrench, make sure it's tight. After you finish install the M6 joint, you want to make sure that you snug this jam nut. Now that the M6 joint has been installed and the jam nut has been tightened, you can flip this up, grab your 19mm wrench and tighten the bulkhead nut. Now that you're done installing cable A, we're going to go and do the exact same thing with cable B, which controls the frontward backward motion. Same thing, I like to flip it on its side, it makes it easier. Grab your nut, get it started, don't tighten it all the way. So now that you have your cable B installed in the shifter case with the bulkhead loose, you want to go ahead and install the M6 joint, which is the longer one, for cable B. Again, I like to flip it on its side because it's giving me easier access to install this joint. And again, with these billet bulkhead spacer, there's no adjustment on this one, so just get it all the way in. So now that you got the joint on the cable, go ahead and put a little drop of Loctite and install it into the bottom of the shifter arm. So same thing, you're going to grab your 10mm and you're going to make sure that this is snug and that one is snug. So just to show you closer, this is cable A that hooks to the side. This is cable B that hooks to the bottom of the shifter arm. So now that we're done under, we're gonna come and finish cable B since we left our bulkhead nut loose. Grab your 19mm wrench, get in there and get it, make it tight. So that should finish the installation of the shifter cable into the shifter box. So now that we're finished on the shifter side, we're ready to install the bulkhead spacer on the transmission side of the cable. So first, take these rodding off, this nut, the two washers, and the last nut. On the transmission side, the bulkhead are the same length. Drop some Loctite, take your bulkhead spacer, get it on there, make sure it is all the way in and you cannot see any threads. Snug it down. So now we're going to put the nut in there. I like to just get it in there a few threads because you want to leave some space so you can slide it over on the transmission bracket. So now reinstall your rod end. We're going to include the specific measurement to make this work straight out the box. So when you measure it, you want to grab your caliper and set it where the thread starts and where the rod end starts, just like. So for cable B, we're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing. Take your rodding off, first nut, washers, and the last nut. Get some Loctite on the cable. Slide your bulkhead spacer on there. Make sure it's all the way in with no threads showing and it's snug. Get your nut started on there. Again, don't put it all the way in. You want to leave some space so you can slide it on your transmission bracket and reinstall your rodding. Again, we'll include the specific length there to make it work. So now that we're done setting up the cables into the shifter and we got our bulkhead spacer installed, I like to go and install the transmission bracket first. The reason for that is if you feed the cable through the firewall and install the shifter in the car, the cables are going to be in the way. So we're ready to install the transmission bracket. I like to start with this first, the smaller bolt, because it doesn't require any spacer, and it's also gonna hold the bracket up, so it's gonna be easier to put the spacer underneath it for the back holes. So like I said, I'm gonna start with this corner bolt, and I'm gonna start it with this 5mm Allen key wrench, and I'm gonna run it down to the point that it's almost tight. So now that I've got my front bolt all the way down, but I still left it a little loose, so we got some room to play, we're gonna go ahead and put the back bolts with their spacer. The shorter spacer go underneath there through this hole, and the longer one will go underneath there through the back hole. So I like to use Loctite pretty much everywhere because those cars do shake a lot, and it's not something you want to come loose on you. Slide the back spacer, run the longer bolt through it, make sure it's in line, get it started. The shorter spacer, I'm going to slide it underneath the front hole and run the shorter bolt through it. And I'm going to grab my 5mm Allen wrench and get this all snugged up. So now that we got all of our bolt all the way down, just going to go in, make sure they're tight. Now that we got the transmission bracket installed, we can now go and install the shifter into the car and run the cables through the firewall. So the owner Adrian already had the base plate installed into this car, so we're not going to cover this. If you're looking for more information about installing your base plate, you can always go and watch our K-Series video or our H-Series video. So now we're going to feed the cable through the firewall. It makes it a lot easier if you have someone with you to grab them so the cable doesn't get stuck in the back of your motor. So we're going to do that. Adrian's going to help me out. Okay. Now that the cable are fed through the firewall, we're going to sit the shifter down on the base plate. And we're going to go ahead and install the 4 13mm nuts. And it makes it a lot easier when you take off this faceplate. So to do that, just have a 2.5mm Allen key, undo those 4 bolts. It's going to give you a lot more access inside to install the nuts. Now that the faceplate is off, we can go ahead and put the 4 13mm nuts. I like to start with the front left one, because this one's a little weird because it sits under the A cable. I'm going to do the right one. I like to get them all the way down by hand and then come back with the wrench after. Once I got all the 4 nuts tightened down by hand, I like to use a 1/4 inch 13mm with a fairly long extension. Makes it easier when you go down like in the case like that. For the front left one, you're gonna need to use a 13mm wrench because the cable is over this one. So you come in from the side like that and finish tightening this nut. Now that we've completely finished tightening down all the bolts that are on the base plate, if you do not have a 1-2-1 lockout, you can go ahead and install the faceplate back on it and go finish up on the transmission side. But since this one has a lockout, I like to leave it off if I have to come back and do some adjustment on the lockout. Now that the cable has been ran through the firewall, you can go ahead and sit them in the bracket. This is cable B. When you put them in there, make sure that little flange goes into the bracket. Get this nut hand tight. Here's a quick tip. When it's time to put the cable onto the transmission post, if you're not sure which cable is which, cable B is going to be free. And cable A, it won't because it's spring loaded. This is the side to side. Make sure your transmission selector is in neutral. Go ahead and put this rod in on. You do not have to adjust this since it has been preset to 11.5mm already. Now take your 19mm wrench and finish tighten up the bulkhead nut. So go ahead and take one of the nylons, put it there. Those are locking spring pin. Make sure this tab is over and not under. Now that we're done with cable B, we can go ahead and finish up cable A. So for cable A, same thing as cable B. You want to run it in the bracket and make sure that little flange is in there. For the rod end on cable A, we do not have to adjust it since it already has been preset to 18mm. So now you can go ahead and install your rod end onto your transmission post. Put a nylon. For those locking spring pin, make sure you have the tab over so it can go over, because if you have it under, it's not gonna, it won't work. So just make sure you have that tab over so it can run over the post. Now you can go ahead and finish tightening up your 19mm bolts, and just for good measure, make sure their jam nuts are tight. So take your 10mm wrench and just make sure those jam nuts are tight. We don't want that to come loose. I just want to give you a couple of tips and tricks on some of the features on our shifter. This right here is a 232 lockout. This block goes up and down. Now the 232 lockout, fifth and reverse, is disabled because the set screw is not out. So I'm going to show you real quick. On this side of the shifter, this is going to lock fifth and reverse. The way you want to do that is you want to thread in this set screw until it barely touches this block. Okay? What that's going to do, it's going to keep you from being able to travel towards that side of the shifter. Now you need to lift this collar and go over that set screw to go fifth and reverse. Same thing for your 232 lockout. You want to take the lower set screw, thread it in until it barely touches this steel block. The same thing, that's gonna block you from going towards this side, which is the second row. So once you come out of second and into third, that block is gonna go down and it's gonna prevent you from going towards the left. So this feature is standard across all of our shifter, whether you order the 1-2-1 lockout or not. This is gonna come with it. So now that we're done installing the cables, we're going to go back inside and we're going to finish up the 1-to-1 adjustment. If you do not run a 1-to-1 lockout, you're done with this installation. So now we're going to finish adjusting the 1-to-1 lockout, and this is what we call the 1-to-1 lockout plunger bolt. So this is what we're going to adjust. You need a 10mm wrench to turn this one. So we're going to put the lockout into ohm position, and one good way to do it is to lift this plunger, use your thumb and push on it from the inside. Kind of roll your thumb over that little bar. So this is home position. Now go ahead, put the car in first gear. Okay. Release the plunger. Okay. Take your shifter arm and pull towards your left, like with good amount of force. See? The lockout plunger went back into ohm position. So that tells us that our gate is too far out and we need to tighten this bolt. So what I like to do is go 1/4 of a turn at the time. Take your 10mm wrench and just give it a little bit and try again. Put it into ohm position. First gear. Activate the lockout and pull towards you to see if this plunger is going to go back into the ohm position. See, it did. We're going to turn this bolt a little more. I'm pretty sure it's going to be done and ready. So back into ohm position. First gear. See, we're good. So from there you bring it to second gear. See, this locked down. The way you want to check it in second gear, it's very important that you go in second gear and you keep pulling the shifter towards you. So you go in first and gauge your lockout, and you want to go in second gear. And you want to hold it in second gear and pull the lever towards you when you do that to check if you got a correct engagement. So from there, you have to try to go back into first gear to make sure everything works. So I'm going to pull towards me, towards left. I'm going to try to go back into first. That brought us right into third gear. And from there, our second lockout went down, and we can only go in fourth gear. So one good way to test your 1-to-1 lockout setup, you're going to want to have this into the ohm position. You want to go into first gear. Okay. You want to unlock this plunger. You want to pull the shifter lever towards you. Go into second gear. Make sure that your plunger travels towards you and it's down and locked. And from there, keep pulling towards you and try real hard to go back into first gear. See, that didn't work. That sent us into third gear. So now you know that your lockout adjustment are ready to go. So now we're pretty much finished with all the adjustment. You're going to put that plate back on. It's very important. It adds a lot of rigidity to the case. So take your 2.5mm Allen key and put back the 4 bolts. So this concludes our installation video for the B-Series all-wheel drive, and I would like to thank Adrian for letting us use his car for this install, and a huge thanks to Mr. Aaron Lopez for letting us use his shop.
Absolutely.